that are on the call realize how important it is, because it really drives the momentum for what happens in your match. And so we spend a significant amount of time in practice each day working on doubles, working on serve patterns, working on return patterns, return locations, and just trying to make sure that the players really have a clear understanding of what they need to do. And also, we do spend a significant amount of time working on formations, being able to use different formations, and also how to counteract different formations and what happens. Uh-oh, can't move. Okay. So doubles, everyone on the court has a purpose. It's an important thing for each player to understand what they're supposed to be doing out there and what their purpose is. And so I wanted to very quickly just kind of go through what each person should be doing or looking to do on the court. Often when we get players, when they come to college, they play junior doubles, but it's really just singles on half a court. So we almost have to go through what each person needs to be able to do and understand what their role is. And so obviously with a server, looking to make a high percentage of first serves, that's going to be their main goal. Be ready for the third ball when it comes back. The server's partner is really looking to cut the middle off, take as many balls to the middle, cause as much mayhem and confusion as possible for the returners. One of the things that we work a lot on is making sure that right before the returner is ready to hit, that they see the net player make a big split step and a head move, so that hopefully we can get into their vision and cause them to miss hit a shot. The returner is trying to make, obviously, as many returns as they can. Typically what we try to do, especially from the deuce size, it looks like this, it would be setting up. We try to get the returner to aim the ball at the single sideline of the server. So we're trying to get the ball far enough away from the net player, but safe enough to a point that's safe enough to where you can get a high percentage of balls in. And then lastly, the returner's partner is reading the server's partner and really trying to read their movement based on if they're taking an aggressive position or if they go more neutral. And then obviously if they go to a more neutral position, then the returner's partner was going to be looking to move forward and try to cut off one of the next couple shots that comes up. I want to talk quickly through some basic double strategy. It's things that we go through with our team all the time. And I think it's things that are helpful for them to understand. Probably the key thing is to make a high percentage of first serves to the opponent's weaker side. One of the issues that we have had with the players is they will come to me and say, Coach, I hit 2 straight first serves to her forehand. I'm like, well, that's her stronger side, and she just pounded 2 returns. So you have to identify very quickly the weaker side and direct about 75% of your shots there. On occasion, you need to serve out wide to strength to make sure that you keep them honest, but you don't want to do a lot of serving to someone's stronger side, because that can really cause you problems. The other thing is that you want to make first serve so you can typically try to keep it to where you want it, to where you want the point to start. If you hit a lot of second serves, it really allows the returner the option to really run around and start, if it's a forehand using their strength to really get control of the point. It can make it very, very difficult for your side of the court. The second point is you want to make a high percentage of neutral returns in play. And we use a single sideline just in front of the server is really the key place that we want to aim returns in the beginning. Once you can establish that return, then you'll hit some returns down the line. You may also hit a couple returns straight at the net player, but you really want to start out establishing the fact that you can make returns to the single sideline. Thirdly, you want to control the net. And how do you control the net? You control the net with formations, with poaches, and fake poaches. Fake poaches are where you make a step out and a step back. But when you make the fake poach is done with the idea to force the returner to hit to you. It's not to just make a head movement, because you need to be ready, because you're telling the person you're going, so they're going to hit to the area you just left, but you're not gone. So the ball is going to be on your racket. You have to be ready to make a play on that next shot. Fourth point of the basic double strategy is when in doubt, play through the middle. The middle solves the riddle. So if you're in trouble from the baseline and you have two back and they have two players at the net, just aim the ball through the middle of the court. Make the other team volley. Expose the fact or force them to show that they can really volley. Don't try a bunch of difficult shots when the net's the lowest in a dead center point. Just play the ball through the middle and start the point from there, or start the second part of the point from there. And then lastly, something we work on a lot in practice, we lob over the opponent's backhand side. And there are also times where we use the cross-court diagonal lob, which is the longest distance on the court, to give yourself a lot of space. You can really give that ball some height. And it typically works really well when you would hit a return and then let's say the other team hits and comes forward and you may be playing two back, to take the ball up over the net player who didn't hit the shot, who was just at the net, over their head, to force that person, the other person, to have to run and go after the ball. So we use that a lot. But I think the lob is an important attribute to have, but it's important to know where to lob. And lobbing over the backhand is the key. So I want to talk to you a little bit about serving patterns. You know, what's the purpose of a wide serve? When you're trying to pull the returner out to the doubles alley. But when you do that, you have to understand that when you pull them out there, you also open up angles on the court. So you have to make sure that your partner understands that when you go wide, they're going to have to shift over and cover the alley. And they're going to have to give up some of the middle that they can't cover. But the shortest distance between any 2 points is a straight line, and the down line will get to you first. So that's the one that has to get covered. Then with the body serve is a serve that we use a lot, not just in doubles, but also in singles. And it really forces the returner, if it's a good body serve, it forces the returner to either hit down the line or directly through the middle of the court. And for me, the body serve is really the best serve to poach on, because you basically can regulate an area where the ball most likely has to travel. And it makes it a lot simpler to be able to set up a poach from there. And then a T serve is a serve that pulls into the middle of the court. It's also a good option to be able to poach. You just have to be careful on the ad side against the righty if you go T to poach, because you can pull a forehand down the line past the net player. So you have to be careful when it's there. The fake works really well off of the T serve as well. So as I talked about the wide serve a moment ago, these are just the points that I went through. You know, when you move to cover the wide serve, you can't stay in the alley though. You have to move so that the net player needs to move in relation to the ball, so that the ball's directly in front of them, so that as soon as the ball is hit, they move back toward the middle so that they can then look to cover one of the next couple shots. You can't stay in the alley. And that's one of the things that we stress a lot with our players. And one of the things when I watch high school tennis, when I used to coach at a club and I used to work with the ladies interclub team and sometimes with the men's A and B teams, is that they would go to cover the alley but never come back to the middle. And so ultimately, if you want to win in doubles, you have to control the net and control the middle of the court. Obviously, in a wide serve, again, as I stated earlier, you can fake, but just know the ball's coming to you. So don't be surprised when it comes to see you. And typically, what I found is that it's important to make a really, really strong move. And if the return comes down the line, it's a really good idea to volley through the middle of the court between the returner and the returner's partner, and not try to do anything spectacular with it. Just volley it on a long diagonal through the middle of the court and let the point set up from there. The next thing I wanted to talk about was a really good ploy is hitting a wide serve, is to drive the first stroke after so if you serve and the return comes back, if the server can take that ground stroke directly back at the single sideline at the returner, then what happens is the ball is directly in front of the net player. It's very difficult to direct it down the line, so that's a ball you can really look to poach on. If after the serve, if the server takes the third ball and hits it in the doubles alley, that is not a ball to poach on because there's too many angles opened up. So where you really want to look is to take that third ball straight at the single sideline so that you can keep the ball right in front of you and then look to take control of the point from there. Oops, went one too far. The T serves, talked about it a little bit. You stretch the return in the direction of the center. Just know that most good returners are able to aim their returns inside out at the single sideline from the due side of the court and from the ad. You know, some of the best returners of all time that I've watched, Todd Woodbridge, Robert Seguso, Peter Fleming, just great doubles returners. Billie Jean King had a great slice return. There were, it's really important to know that that's a shot they can make over and over again. So you're gonna have to poach on that shot, and then that's where a change of formation will come up. But we'll talk about that in just a little bit. T serves, great opportunity to execute a poach, as it is hard to hit the ball behind you. And when you have a shaded eye or an eye formation, and we'll talk about that as the presentation gets going, that's really the preeminent serve that's used. If you watch the US Open that's coming up, or you watch any of the pro events as they come up, when you watch the doubles, you'll see the shaded eye or the eye formation, but usually the shaded eye seems to be the one that's used in men's pro tennis now, and you'll see a ton of body and a lot of T serves. Okay, so here's a bit of an illustration as to what kind of happens with a wide serve versus a T serve. I must say the wide server here, though, and illustrate here, must have like a Yannick Noah slice serve, because this is the only person who could hit this angle. But basically, it's the serve from C takes the returner A out to the alley, and then you see what's open from there. And so D is the service partner, has to go out toward the line there to cover the shot, but there's been a lot more space coming back cross court. Versus on the centered serve, C serves at the center, A moves to the middle, and these are the angles that A can really play out of, and D, who's the service partner, can really pinch the middle of the court and look to cover either of those shots, especially if it's a really good first serve. So that's why a T serve is really important to serve in doubles, and it's something that you want to be able to utilize. And here's a better illustration of a wide serve. That's a better angle. But that's really a good example of what it looks like. The server goes wide, the receiver goes out to the edge there, and then P1 needs to move out with them, follow the ball. You always keep the ball in front of you. It's just like an approach shot. You always follow the ball. Well, when you're at the net, especially if you're the server's partner, when the serve, wherever the serve goes, you have to follow and position yourself that you can be almost directly, the ball directly in front of you, or at least close to it. So you want it, so that way you can bisect the angle that's created by what's just been hit. So that's really, really, really important. Body serves, my favorite serve. Body serves are really important because they allow you to force the ball a certain area of the court. And so it basically, unless the person is able to really hit it early, they're going to most likely hit it directly forward or down the line, or in many cases they'll lob because they'll be tied up. It works really well against a returner who likes to take big swings from either side. So if you have someone like a Jack Sock who takes a huge, huge backswing on his forehand, a body serve on that side is what you would use to try to tie him up a little bit. It works well against whether you're an organized poach versus just a fake or just a poach. So let me give you the vernacular that we use. An organized poach is when the net player is going to move no matter what happens. So for us, let's say you serve T, the person's hitting a return. I'm going to go no matter what. I want the returner to see movement. So we're going to move, and the service knows that they have to cover the other side of the court, and it's organized, and there's no thought. Just a poach is where you would serve, and you would make a move to the middle and look. And then if you see what you like, then you would take it. And then obviously a fake is what that says. A fake is where you would give the head movement, but you come back. The other thing with a body serve is it's a high percentage. As a server, is really able to use the returner's body as a target. And I find, for me, I think that's really important. It works really well in singles and also works really well in doubles. So here's a bit of an illustration. So here's a doubles team, and you see the server's about to serve, and you see the two red squares on the outside and the green and the yellow on the inside. When you're serving body, typically you want to try to hit the serve, whether it's a slice or just a first serve, but you're trying to hit the ball off the returner's hip, whether it's the right hip or the left hip, and that's the yellow and the green boxes. What you're trying to stay away from is the red box, because that's where the person can stretch out and really accelerate and take their normal swing, and that's what you want to stay away from. So as you look at it, this server is most likely, I'm just guessing, is most likely going to serve to the yellow box, because that would be left. That would be a right. That would be a backhand hip for a righty and a forehand hip for a lefty, and that would force the ball basically to his partner. His partner should be ready to take the next ball. Okay. Want to talk through a little bit of the regular, the patterns of play. And we use a number of different patterns. It's harder for us to play the straight I formation because I coach in women's tennis, and a lot of times it's just hard because of sheer size for the young ladies to be able to get out to cover the wide ball. So what we tend to play is the shaded I more. We can obviously two back on serve and then the tandem formation. So I'd like to go through all of those and discuss kind of what happens with each of those. Are there any questions as this is going on? Okay, guess not. Cool. So against a regular formation, you would start out probably this way. You're trying to hit inside out backhand from the deuce side or cross court forehand. And as I said earlier, you're aiming at the single sideline. You're going to obviously try to mix in a ball straight at the opponent on occasion, as long as you let your partner know so they can know to cover the middle of the court. And you may also mix in one down the line. But as you start out the match, you're typically going single sideline on the deuce and also on the ad. One really effective move against the regular formation, and Todd Woodbridge and Pam Shriver were two of the best at this particular skill that I've ever seen, because they were deuce court players, was the lob down the line. Todd Woodbridge was amazing with his lob down the line, and he would get it over the net player's head, and then he and his partner would charge the net, and both of the Woodies volleyed so well, they would be able to take over the point from there. Also, he had really good thing that he was able to do from the deuce side of the court, especially at Wimbledon, was he would chip the return down at their feet. They would volley up. He would either take a forehand line or he would lob backhand over their backhand side of the net player on the deuce side and then close in from there. So, and here's a picture of a regular formation. That's kind of what that looks like. And the returner, who's at the far end here, is trying to hit the single sideline here if she can, or somewhere in that vicinity, and to get the point started. Her partner needs to follow the ball, and then based on what happened, the returner's partner will make plays, and from there, and she, in this picture, she'll be taking her cues from the server's partner. So that's why she can't really look back at the returner, she needs to look at the net player and read the keys off of her. And if that player gets aggressive, then she needs to know that she needs to take a step back and move to cover the middle of the court, because the middle is always a place you have to keep covered. If someone hits an angle volley and gets it off the court, that's too good, but you don't want winners to go through the middle of the court. In the eye or the shaded eye formation, you know, this is a tricky formation to play, and I would be eager to hear from anybody if they've had success with teaching it, because it's definitely one that will show up a lot. And there's so many different ways there are a couple different ways to execute it and a couple different ways to defend it. One of the things that we do, and I'll be eager from anyone's opinion on this, when we play against it, we play 2-back. And I just think for us, because we try to hit returns down the line, because if they're starting in the middle of the court, we have to hit the ball down the line, because what happens is they have the middle covered. So if you play the ball through the middle and you don't hit it hard and hit it firmly and penetrating, they'll just volley the ball off the court. So we return down the line. We'll occasionally though mix a return where we go straight at them just to try to confuse them, because typically there's movement they're trying to get. They're either staying, going left or going right. And so you wanna be able to put a little bit of confusion in their mind. So occasionally it makes sense to hit straight at the net player. And also if you have a good lob, especially from the deuce side, it's always good to lob down the line, because that's one thing that can really defeat that formation, is a lob down the line. And here's what it looks like. So there's a serve, there's the shaded eye formation. The returner hopefully will go line. And the thing is that the server's partner may cover line, but he's going to have to move and pick a spot. And if he doesn't make a really, really good volley, the middle of the court is somewhat open as his partner's coming forward. Conversely, if he makes a really good serve and the ball's set up, then he's gonna drive the volley right through the middle of the court. He's probably most likely not going to try any angles, because as you can see, the returner's partner has moved up into the court. So he's taking the angle away. So he's going to force him to go through the middle. And here's the I formation. I never liked the I formation myself when I play doubles. I think because I'm tall and I felt like I had to get really low, and my butt is big and I felt like I was going to get hit in the butt. So it was just not my favorite formation. I played the shaded I formation or just regular. But here from this formation, they're going to be trying to serve T 75 to 80% of the time. And then from there, he's either going to stay, go left, or go right. And then that's how it's going to play out. And obviously, the server will pick the side that he's not going to. And what's interesting here is that the returning team is playing one up, one back, well, a little bit staggered. So, I mean, there's a couple different ways to play against it. Obviously, it depends on how well you return. If you have really good returns, you can play in. But you really have to be able to hit the returns really cleanly. And I think be able to stretch the volleyer out. Because if not, it really is a great formation for wreaking havoc with the returner. Because you can really eliminate places of the court where the ball can go, which is the purpose of it, I guess. Two back on the serve. It's an interesting formation. To be successful with two back, you want to aim your returns pretty much through the middle of the court. You can mix in down the line. We're big on attacking second serve, so I think you want to attack second serves as much as you can and go toward the alleys when you're attacking it. The other thing is to mix in lobs doing ground stroke exchanges to get the serving team off the net. And it also, two back on the serve works well against big first serves and left-handed servers, especially on the ad side, because left-handed servers on the ad side will make you crazy. They will serve the slice out wide, and let's say your player is out there and your weight is going to the sideline, the ball is going away, and you have to, if you try to take that ball back cross court and you don't hit it cleanly enough, it's very easy to poach against it. Whereas two back allows you, the returner, to play a couple steps off the baseline, have a longer look at it, look at the serve coming, and they have more safety because they can aim the ball through the middle, or they can play to a bigger target because they don't have to worry about their partner at the service line, their partner's back to help play defense. And here's the two back formation. So there's a server goes out really wide. And the partner of the server gets pretty tight to the net. The return is about one step off the singles sideline, and the partner returner is on the baseline. I like them honestly closer to the sideline, but they give them more time. Obviously, you get more time to react. And then here you can see the vulnerable areas, which is the volley, the angle volley, and the drop shot. To be honest with you, I don't really worry as much about the drop shot because most players today don't volley as much as in the old days. So to be able to pull off drop shot after drop shot under pressure is pretty tough. So I think typically the one you have to be careful with is really the angle volley. But off of this, as a server serves, they would want to return through the middle. Then as soon as you can in a rally, if you can, you would try to find from the team that's serving, know where their weaker stroke is. So if it's like if there's one player who's weaker, but they happen to be at net, you would lob over their head, force the server to run over, get the ball, make them switch ends, and then play the next ball to the weaker player. But the goal is to get the ball to the weaker player as early in the point as you can. And then also, if you have players who don't volley well, then it gives you an opportunity to put them with their strength on the baseline, and it allows them to ground stroke more and puts pressure on the volleyers. Because it's you don't have as many open spots, many places to hit the ball when there's two back. When there's one up and one back, you have a target in front of you, you have the middle of the court that's open. But when there's two back, it really forces you to, I think, to really be able to volley effectively and efficiently. And typically what we work on is against two back is to volley middle, bring them to the middle, and then volley away. What they want you to do is to volley away in the beginning because that opens up angles on the court, also opens up the lob and makes it much harder to defend. And it also doesn't open up enough court for you to finish the point. So what we work on is volleying through the middle first, bringing them to the middle. Whoever runs to get the ball, to get that shot to the middle, they've opened up their side of the court. So the next volley should most likely go there. So that's something that we work on a lot. We spend a significant amount of time just making sure that the players understand that what they want you to do is to go wide, to open up an angle. And once you open up an angle, then that's where they can take balls to the middle of the court. This is where they can lob over your head. This is where a bunch of really, really bad things can happen. When we play, one of the teams in our conference, the University of Miami, they have a lot of players from South America on their team who are really good ground strokers who maybe aren't quite as good at the net, but they love playing two back. They love forcing you to have to hit a number of volleys to finish the point. And that's one of the things that two back does. It forces the opposite team to have to typically hit a number of volleys and overheads to win the point. And then that's when, as the volume of shots continues to increase, that's when bad things really can start to happen. Players can lose confidence. They lose their awareness of where they are on the court. And many times, one of the weaknesses for a lot of the volleyers of today, especially in women's tennis, is when they're just inside the service line or on the service line, they're not sure what to do from there, especially if a ball dips at their feet from there. So, you know, when you play two back, it really gives you an opportunity to dip balls at people's feet, lob them, back them up when they try to come forward, play the ball down again at their feet, play away. Why I don't like it as much is that you're not able to be aggressive and finish at the net. You can be aggressive from the back, but obviously the ball still has to go 78 feet from there. Whereas from the net, you can finish off much more easily. So just want to talk to you a little bit about the two-back formation. There's also a formation that I'm sure some of you who coached club tennis have seen, where the server and the returner both stay on the baseline. And we had that a lot when I coached at a club, and it's the same idea. Basically, it's just that the serving team is not as strong at the net. They feel they're stronger from the baseline, and they're more comfortable hitting ground strokes at people, and also throwing up lobs and forcing the other team to have to hit a number of shots to finish the point. The tandem formation, I had never really seen this as much. It's also called the Australian formation. And it's a formation where you use to hide a server's weaker ground stroke. And we see that a lot in women's tennis. And when we play at the college level, there are a number of teams that utilize a tandem formation a lot to really force the ball to a really good two-hander or to a really good forehand. And to minimize the weaker side. What we've tried to do, and what our main plan is as soon in a rally as we can, we try to lob over the server's partner to get the ball to the server's weaker side, because that's the side that they're hiding. So we lob over the other person's head, it gets to their weaker side, and then we try to get control of the point from there. On second serves, we go directly at the net player. Or we go down the line and try to neutralize that person and then go away from there. And as I said, after the first serve returns in play, get the ball away from the server's stronger side as soon as possible. Because they're doing this for a reason. They want this one specific stroke in play, and you don't want this one specific stroke in play. So as soon as you can, you want to get away from it. So basically here in this form here, if S would serve, let's say, T to the returner returns down the line, that's the server wants a backhand, they'll play the backhand back to the receiver. The next shot most likely should be a lob over the server's partner, or you can try to hit the ball through the middle, but you've got to do something to get the server's opposite side in play. Because if not, then it could get a little bit crazy. So this formation is used a lot. I don't know if it's used as much in high school, but I know when I coached in the club, we used it to hide a weaker stroke, because many times at the club level, you'll have, one side that's significantly stronger than the other. Versus in college tennis, most of the strengths and weaknesses are much closer. But I know it's at the club, I'm sure, and also at the high school level, there could be one side that is so much stronger that you really want to make sure that stroke gets in play. So that's when you would pull this tandem out. I wanted to talk a little bit, because I've gone through the formations and a little bit about where a ball should go and a basic strategy. One of the things that we work on in doubles as well as we work on the serving. And we've been spending a lot of time working on the serve. And so I know you guys are going to have Jeff Salzenstein, who's going to talk about the serve. He has a master class on it, and he is pretty amazing guy talking about the serve. But I wanted to just share just a little bit about the serve. Some things that I've seen, both in college tennis and also in pro tennis. We have some pros who come through Atlanta and will come out and hit with our players. and just some of the things that I've noticed and that I've seen that might be of some help and assistance. And obviously, I think the best server in women's tennis is sitting there, and that's Serena Williams. And she's at the acceleration phase of her serve. And if you look at the line that's through her shoulders and elbows, you can see that she has naturally unbalanced her shoulders, her hips forward. She's got a lower elbow, serving elbow. The right elbow is lower. You can see that the right shoulder is higher than the left shoulder, to put her in really good position to use shoulder, be able to execute shoulder over shoulder and hip over hip. From this position, she'll be able to cock, the racket's in cock position, to be able to drop the racket and then basically feel like she's throwing her racket at contact and be able to get maximum power and be able to drive up to the ball from there. So I think it's pretty impressive what she's able to do with her serve. She can serve obviously wide, she can serve body, she can serve tee, she can just basically do whatever is necessary. And but it's biomechanically a very, very clean serve. I think when you're working with young players, sometimes it's important to understand that they may not be able to execute all the serves and the serve and speed, but if they can ever understand this particular look here where the shoulder's unbalanced, and if they're able to get the elbow in this position where it's in line with the shoulder elbow, but it's down a bit lower and the hips forward, it really gives them an opportunity to hit it well. One of the struggles, though, occurs is when you have a high, so if you took this elbow out of the line and you move the elbow up to the same parallel to the shoulder, that's when you would really that would cause an issue with really being able to have an upward swing path and a faster swing speed, because you really can't drive your back hip and your back shoulder once it's level. So you don't want them level, you want this higher, front shoulder higher. Martina Hingis was obviously a great player, Hall of Famer, but she really struggled off the serve, and it's because her shoulders were flat. If you could take this line and just make it straight across, that's what her shoulders were. And so I think for Serena, she's won a number of events, number of Grand Slam titles, and a lot of it is led with her serve, and biomechanically her serve is quite good. The next serve that I wanted to watch or show you, a couple things you want to look at is with good servers. We spent some time on the serve, and these are just some commonalities of really good servers. And this is Novak Djokovic, who's really had to work. Okay. He's really had to work a lot on his serve. And so these are a couple things you want to look at is a high hitting shoulder, but it's to the right because he's right-handed, to the right side of his body. It's not straight up over his head. It's to the right side of his body, but he's got a high hitting shoulder. His contact is inside the court, and his off arm is tucked. His off arm's not flying. His off arm is tucked. If you think about ice skaters and figure skaters, as a matter of fact, when they go to make a triple or a quad or whatever, one of their big turns, they jump, but they bring their hands in. Bringing the hands in allow them to spin quicker. You move your arms out, it slows the rotation down. So that's why the tucked arm comes in and allows the right arm to fire forward. So I just wanted to show that. I know it's a little bit off the topic, but we've spent so much time working on serves and spending time with the serve, and the serve is such a big part of doubles, and having a good serve is really, I think, one of the most important parts, or effective serve, one of the most important parts of doubles. You don't have to necessarily have a big serve, but you have to have a serve that you can place to the areas of the court where the ball needs to go. And it's helpful if you can hit not only a first serve, but a slice serve so you can use for body serve, and you need to have, typically at the higher levels, you want to have a good kick serve that you can get up to the opponent's backhand or weaker side to get the ball out of their strike zone. So those, I think, are the things that make the serve such an important part of serving, of doubles. And so that's why I just wanted to go back to that. I don't know if there were any questions about the formations or anything about the serving?
Yes. Hey, Rodney.
Yes.
It's Pat.
Hey, Pat.
This is going well, and thank you. I know this is difficult not to be standing in front of 100 people and doing this. So you're doing
I have
an
my
awesome
racket.
job.
I have my racket.
Yeah, there you go. I saw you. So Rod has asked, when coaching teams shifting in their doubles, how do you teach the spacing between the partners?
Oh man, that's a really good issue. One of the things that we've had to do with certain players is that we've had to have them tie a rope around each other so that they move in concert, but they keep the distance between each other, so that because each of them is responsible for a certain amount of space. So if they get too close, they can't cover the necessary space on the court. So we've done the rope where they have to move together, and that's been effective, just so they can understand kind of how you move together. So that's, I think for us, has been the thing. We've used the rope, and so they can understand the movement together. I think the biggest thing though is they also have to understand too, is that if your partner goes out wide, you have to go almost the same amount of steps to cover the middle. So if they go wide, you cover the middle. If it's like a dance, you're going back and forth, but you want to keep the spacing from each other, but it can't get too wide, because if the spacing gets too wide, then no one can cover the middle. And it's always important that there's someone to cover the middle. So that, I mean, even if you have to give up a little bit of space on the outside, the middle is a thing that has to always be covered.
That's good. I might suggest for people working with club players and not their college teams, they may want to use a rope with some Velcro. So
Yes.
If they pull apart too much, they don't pull each other over.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing too is that an awareness of where your partner is. And I think the more you play with someone, you have a greater feel for where they are in the court. When I worked with the Bryan brothers, I worked with them in juniors. When I worked with the USTA, they were on a national team. And then I also was able to work with them at the 2008 Olympic Games. And it's just watching them over all these years and them having played together so much, they just know exactly where the other one is. They don't even have to look out the corner of their eye. And so that's why I think one of the things that we did when I worked at the club was we tried to, as we put our inter-club teams together, we tried to keep our teams together for the full season so that they could begin to get familiar with each other, so that they could know where this person goes, what they like, what serves they like based on where the point is, what's going on with the play. We didn't do a lot of changing with the teams. I've almost do the same thing with my college team. That's one of the things that I learned from my club days that I've used in college, is that we don't really make a lot of switches with partnerships. We try to do that early on in the season, and then we try to keep them together. And then another thing that we've done that I don't know, and I would love to hear from someone else what they found, we also tend to, and this has been, I'm trying to do a little bit better with it, but typically when we have someone come in, like for example, we have 4 freshmen coming in this year to Georgia Tech, we'll determine which side of the court they like to play from. And they typically won't come off that side unless we have an emergency with an injury or something. So if you're a deuce court player, you'll stay deuce court probably for all 4 years you're at Tech. Or if you're an ad court player, you'll stay in the ad. And maybe we will substitute a different partner in if there's an issue going on or if there's an injury. But we try to keep someone on the same side, because the way you return from one side of the court, the look from the other side is completely different. And the shot selections are different. And then also what you cover when you come forward is different. So we really try to make sure that you stay on that same side. And I don't know if other people do the same thing. It always concerns me though when someone says, oh, I can play either side. Because I just feel like sometimes that means you're not really that good at either one of them. So you can just go either way. Because the great players that I've been around, they're really good from one side of the court. John McEnroe was great from the ad. The Bryan brothers, even though Bob is left-handed, Bob plays the deuce. Mike has such a great backhand return, so Mike plays the ad. Martina played the ad. Pam Shriver always played the deuce. My good buddy Zena Garrison, she always played the deuce. So I don't know. That's just kind of the way that I've looked at it, and the way that I've found success doing it, is finding someone aside where they're typically comfortable, and then really getting them a lot of reps off the return, and then off of the third ball, what to do with the next shot. And a lot of it's typically set up with, if you're right-handed, if your cross-court forehand is your better side, then what you try to do is teach them to hit an inside-out return, so that next ball can be a forehand, so they can go cross-court or down line if they need to. Whereas if your best shot is your inside-out forehand, then you try to really work on them being on the ad side, so that that third ball will be an inside-out forehand, or they can also go inside in, but they really have their strength that's set up in front of them.
And let's go. I'm gonna feed you another question, and if you've got a lot more to go, tell me, and then we'll let you keep going. Or do you want to hear the questions?
No, I want to hear the questions.
Yes, and anybody else, you've got the chat box. You can click on chat to send your questions in. We have somebody that's asked about using the Australian formation again, and feeling there's some miscommunication with the signals. So do you have to do a lot of focus on practicing that better communication using the various formations?
Yes, you have to have really good communication. And the thing is that when players first get to college, and I can speak from the college side, they have different signals they've used. And so in the beginning, they're using, the key is, what typically happens is you say where you want the serve to go, and then whether you're staying, going, or faking. So that's usually the two purposes. You're saying where you want the serve to go, and then if you're going or not going. What I decided to do, we had some issues with that. So what I started having was the server and the server's partner come together before each point, and then the server discuss with the net player where they're serving, and the only call is if you're going, if you're staying, and if you're in the eye or shaded eye, then if you're going left, right, or faking and staying. So you took one of the things out, because you're right, the communication sometimes would get a little bit off. And one of the things that really, I think, would make me the most upset is when someone would miss a sign and not cover the line. Because I mean, that's the first ball that gets to you, so you have to cover the line. And so when you don't cover the line, it really is disconcerting, because you really don't give yourself a chance to play the point, because the point's over, because the down line's the shortest distance on the court. So I agree with them. I think the biggest thing is to simplify the signals. When I coached at Ladies Inter Club, the year we were really, really successful, we just had the two ladies talk before each point, and they would discuss where the serve was going, if they were going to poach or what they were going to do, and then go from there. So there was no confusion.
That's awesome, Rodney. That's good. John asked, are the formations as important in the women's college tennis as the men's? Now, we're going to get in trouble with this one probably, but I guess he's taken with the power. Is there a difference between the men and the women for their formations? I think, because I've coached the men's tennis, I coached the men's team at University of Miami, and now I coach the women's team at Georgia Tech. I'll say this, with the men's game, you would probably start off with a shaded out formation, because that seems to be the big thing everyone's using. So that's, whereas in a women's game, we typically would start with a regular formation, but we've had to switch based on what's going on. And if you're playing somebody who's, let's say a lot of the girls have really great backhands and backhand returns, you can't let them just stand and just keep ripping cross courts. So you've got to, go to a shaded eye where you're taking the middle of the court away. So I think it just depends, but in men's tennis, the shaded eye is the thing. And I see them going shaded eye first serve, shaded eye or regular formation with the second serve. In women's tennis, in the second serve, we tend to go with a regular formation from there. We get out of the shaded eye from what I've seen so far. What we've done, it's been successful. Good. KJ asked you, are you finding the newer generation of college players needing to be managed in a different way than you did with your other generations, previous generations of players?
Oh yeah, it's every generation's different, and this is what Generation Z or Generation X and I think they're exposed to so much information that I find that with this generation, I have to there's more of a discussion. I explain, but then there's a bit more back and forth. Then previously it was just like, hey, I need you to do this. And they would go, okay, this is what I'm doing. Now it's, hey, I need you to do this. And then it's, oh, well, you know, why should we go into a tandem? Well, we're going to a tandem because of this and this. Oh, okay. So there's a little more back and forth, which is fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but I just noticed it versus when I was in school back in the Stone Age. I mean, whatever coach, for example, when I was at SMU, Dennis Ralston was my coach. And Dennis Ralston won Wimbledon doubles at 19 and also won the French Open doubles with Arthur Ashe and was NCAA doubles champion at USC as well. So if he told me to stand on my head, I was pretty much going to stand on my head because he knew the doubles game so well. He had been U.S. Davis Cup captain, whereas now it's more of a conversation. I must tell you that when I was working with the Bryan brothers, it was interesting. They never questioned what you asked them to do, which I thought was interesting. I know they were so well taught by their parents, Kathy and Wayne Bryan, who did such an amazing job coaching them and are really the reason why they are where they are. But many times, for example, when they were playing at the Olympics and I would have scouted a match and I would say, hey, these are the things that I see. This is what you need to do. And they would say, okay. One of the funniest moments, they were in the semis of the Olympics in 2008, and they were playing Roger Federer and Stan Wawrinka. And James Blake had beaten Fed in the quarters of the singles. And so we were obviously all really happy. And so when they went to play the doubles, before they were going down through the tunnel, I was standing there and Fed was there and he looked at me and he goes, God, I'm feeling it today. And I was like, oh, okay, man. And he went out in that match and everything I thought that he couldn't do, which I didn't think he could take his backhand because he was playing a deuce side and take it down line. I mean, the first three returns, he ripped them down line and kept looking over at me and laughing. And he played incredible. And as a matter of fact, those guys ended up winning the gold medal that year. And he was just smiling, just playing incredibly well. But the things that I didn't think he could do as well, obviously you weren't going to serve to his forehand. So you're going to serve him body backhand, but he was ripping balls down the line. So once he makes you stay down the line, then he was going inside out and mixing in chips and lobbing. And it was just, can you imagine all the shots that he has on a whole court? Well, imagine that on half of a court. He's hitting dink angles. And I mean, it was just like a nightmare to watch it. And then Stan, if you serve with his backhand, he rips it. So you have to serve body forehand. But if you don't get it right where it's supposed to be, then he's ripping down line too. So I mean, we lost a tough 4-setter to those guys, but I mean, it was amazing watching those guys play. But I still remember Fed looking at me going, God, I feel really good today.
Man, that's awesome. And that's a scary thought as the opponent when he says he's feeling good. Working with the high school players, what should we be helping and working with them and training them for to get them ready to come to play for college tennis? You know,
I think the biggest thing when you're working with the youngest players in doubles or in singles, I'll answer both of those. In singles, you want them to understand consistency and ball tolerance. I think that's the single most important thing. You want them technically to have, obviously, the stroke that is the most difficult and the one that causes the most trouble is the serve. So you want them to have good basic technique on their serve and the other strokes. But I think consistency, number one. I think the ability to move and hit on the run and understand recovery footwork is important as well. Whatever transition they have learned already, which is fine, because what I found is when players get to school, they learn more transition. But I think the consistency is key. The ball tolerance is key. They're understanding what their strengths and weaknesses are, and also understanding what patterns of play they may be able to work on, continue to work on to perfect. Because ultimately that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to take the things that you do well and perfect them, and take the things you're not as good at and minimize them. But you need to have patterns of play that really play into what your strengths are. And then in doubles, I mean, you just want to be able to return and not be afraid at the net to volley. And then if they miss volleys or they go at the wrong time poaching, it's fine, because you want to learn the instinct to move. If you miss it, you miss it. You make it, you make it. It's fine, because even if you miss the shot, you've sent a message across the net to your opponent that if you put the ball here, I'm gonna move. I'm gonna take that ball. So you put pressure on them. But if you just stand there then you make the person feel like they have so much space to hit to. So those are things that I would say. Just on a basic thing is ultimately, consistency is the key. Being able to make balls. That's where it all starts. And then from there, to be able to make them on the run, to have patterns of play, to be able to defend, and then to be able to attack when you get a short ball.
That's excellent. I've got one last question from Jeff. And what about, how much would you have your players doing a serve and volley? So, of course, we're all old school, remember it from the day when everybody seemed to do it. But how much is that happening today? Let's go with your girls team.
Okay.
Thinking about that.
Well, we work on it in practice a lot because, well, first of all, we work on it a lot for singles. We mix it in singles because one of the things we try to look at is if you get up 40-love in a game, if you get a serve, hit a big serve to their weaker side, and they've been struggling a bit off the return, the easiest way to finish them is to come in and finish it from there. So we use it to try to finish off a game, or we use it as a surprise tactic. And then in doubles, it helps to occasionally mix in, especially if you have someone, if you can serve to their weaker side, if they're floating the returns, it's good to be able to come forward and mix in some serve and volley. So I think today's tennis, it's more of a mix than it is, we don't really have, the Cashes and the Edbergs, the Samprases.
Well, that was an outstanding presentation by Rodney Harmon.
It looks like we've lost him again. I'm going to call on Kevin here.